I love Daniel Nahmon, and I love Mark Singh Dan. That's great. So today I'm talking about attitude determines altitude, and it's an outline that Dr. David Bruner of San Jose, California, wrote. Many of you know that CSL has created an outline for the year of talks that support the idea that we are working toward a world that works for everyone. And in this center, we're working for helping to create a happier world. So, attitude determines altitude. And that's an aeronautical expression. And it means that attitude is the orientation of the aircraft or spacecraft, relative to the direction of travel. And attitude determines your altitude, whether you will pitch, roll, or yaw. Meaning that when you have a good attitude, then you can create a life that is working for you, and you're the one that determines that. I want to share with you a story of a woman. She was a minister's wife, and she told this story about herself, and I was in Texas when I heard it. She had younger days of partying, and she had gone to a party with people that she didn't know very well, and was given a drug, a ring they call them, that paralyzes you, so that you can't speak or respond. And she was abducted or taken by a gang of men who raped and beat her, and throughout the night. And one of them drew a toothpick, the short end of the toothpick, and it was his job to kill her. So they were in the car just right at dawn on their way for him to take her out in the forest. This is the deep piney woods of East Texas. And once you're in the forest, it's unlikely that you will surface again because it's very dark and brambled and a really unpleasant place. But it was sunrise. And she had come together enough to realize and to be able to speak a bit. And she said, "What a beautiful day to die." And when she said that, she made eye contact with him. She truly was living in the moment. And she was making a choice about her attitude. "What a beautiful day to die," she said. And she made eye contact. And he, for the first time, recognized and acknowledged her as a human being. And so he left her on the side of the road with only the injuries that she had incurred. He left her to live. To be able to live in that kind of moment-to-moment grace and awareness is what we're looking for in this life. To be able to be totally in the present and be aware of the sunrise, no matter what is happening. That's creating a reality that is powerful. And if we can all come to that place that we live that moment to moment in gratitude, or as I call it, gladness, to be able to notice what is really wonderful and happening in your life is a powerful spiritual position to be in. So David Bruner acknowledges that Viktor Frankl's birthday is March the 26th, and he was born in 1905. And Bruner quotes Viktor Frankl's book, Man's Search for Meaning. And Frankl says, among other things, quote, when we are no longer able to change this situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. We are challenged to change ourselves. Everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way. Frankl tells the story of being in a concentration camp, and he discovered the importance of various forms of resistance, even the most sordid ones, except everyone but his sister were killed in the camps. All of his family, his children, and his wife were killed in the camps. And he tells this story of going in the darkness. And I quote, "We stumble on in the darkness, over big stones and through large puddles, along the one road leading from the camp. The accompanying guards kept shooting at us, shouting at us, and driving us with the butts of their rifles. Anyone with very sore feet supported himself on his neighbor's arm. Hardly a word was spoken. The icy wind did not encourage talk. Hiding his mouth behind an upturned collar, the man marching next to me whispered suddenly, 'If our wives could see us now, I do hope that they are better off in their camps and don't know what is happening to us.' That brought thoughts of my own wife. And we stumbled on for miles, slipping on icy spots, supporting each other time and again, dragging one another upward and onward. Nothing was said, but we both knew each of us were thinking of our wives. Occasionally, I looked at the sky where the stars were fading and the pink light of the morning was beginning to spread behind a dark bank of clouds. But my mind clung to my wife's image, imagining it with an uncanny accuracy. I heard her answering me, saw her smile, her frank and encouraging look. Real or not, her look was then more luminous than the sun which was beginning to rise. A thought transfixed me. For the first time in my life, I saw the truth as it set into song by so many poets, proclaimed as the final wisdom of so many thinkers. The truth that love is the ultimate and the highest goal to which man can aspire. Then I grasped the meaning of the greatest secret that human poetry and human thought and belief have to impart. The salvation of man is through love, and in love. I understood how a man who has nothing left in this world still may know bliss. How a man who has nothing left in this world still may know bliss. Be it only for a brief moment in the contemplation of his beloved, in a position of utter desolation, when man cannot express himself in positive action, when his only achievement may consist of enduring his suffering in the right way, an honorable way. In such a position, man can, through loving contemplation of the image he carries of his beloved, achieve fulfillment. For the first time in my life, Frankl says, I was able to understand the meaning of the words. The angels are lost in perpetual contemplation of the infinite glory. He often said that even within the narrow boundaries of a concentration camp, he found only two races. Frankel found only two races of people in the concentration camp: decent and unprincipled ones. These are found in every class, ethnicity, and group. Decent or unprincipled people. Which am I most of the time is the question. Which am I most of the time? Am I decent or am I unprincipled? That's something for us all to contemplate. Am I decent or unprincipled? Ernest Holmes in, what's up with that? What's going on?
You threw your scarf on after I mic'd you up.
Oh, okay.
Not
Can I
such a
have
good.
little da-da-da-da?
Yeah. Dum, bum, 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 bum.
Thank you. Let's stop it then. Thanks. So to continue, Ernest Holmes in his book, A New Design for Living, and said, and I quote, "Everything in our life is a creative activity of one form or another. Some people create good in their lives, others create bad, while most of us seem to create a little of both. But as we grow in knowledge and in conviction, become familiar with the way laws work, and the more and more are able to swing the creative activity of our thought to the favorable side, for centuries, the comprehension and utilization of electricity was beyond man's power. Electricity and the understanding of it was beyond man's power. When he finally reached the point of being able to direct its action to a certain degree, he discovered that it could heat and light his own, but that it could also deprive him of his life. Water may be considered in the same manner. It is necessary for life, but it also causes a man to lose his life. These are two things which, rightly used, are of benefit, but whose action may be consciously or unconsciously directed by our determination. A law does not care about the result of its action. It has no conscience. It knows only to act. It is impersonal. We are all free to choose the direction of its action." So we know that natural laws can either be harmful or they can be detrimental. And that's the same with the law of our word, the law of attraction. It can be very powerful to our benefit, or it can be to our detriment. Because, to remind you one more time, what you think is what you get. What you think is what you get, and that's a law. There's no escaping it. And that law of attraction is like a polygraph or a lie detector. It knows the truth of your belief system. It knows the truth of what you're thinking. And so people say, yes, but. And whatever that is behind the but is what they are truly thinking. And I have to ask, is that what you are wanting to create for yourself? So, we are free to choose the direction of the law and the direction of action in our mind. Frankel said, is thought to have coined the term, Frankel said to have coined the term Sunday neurosis. The term refers to a form of anxiety resulting from awareness in some people of the emptiness of their lives. Once the working week is over, some complain of a void and a vague sense of discontent. This arises from an existential vacuum or feeling of meaninglessness, which is a common phenomena and is characterized by the subjective state of boredom, apathy, and emptiness. One feels cynical, lacks direction, and questions the point of most of life's activities. I suspect, he says, that this is what causes folks to be so desperately hooked online. And David Boninger says that the computer is called the loneliness industry. That nowadays people are making contact online rather than making their life rich and full. They're living a synthetic life through electronics and making their relationships through electronics. So, Sunday neurosis, you all do not suffer from that because here you are making contact and being in community. But there are so many who do not have any kind of purpose in their lives, any sort of direction or meaning. And as Frankl says, man's search for meaning. We also always, ultimately, can create meaning in our lives by our belief system and making a decision to care about other people and to make contact with other people. David Bruner says, I dare say that nobody needs a mate, although each one of us may want one. What we really need is community. What we really need is community. And people like us in a center for this belief system, in larger communities, in larger churches, many people complain of cliques. And here we are, and as few as there are of us, we all are on the same level and the same footing. And we care about each other in such a powerful way. We're very blessed. Folks at centers like this complain of cliques. Some believe that others should approach them. Some believe that others should approach them rather than the other way around. And he tells the story of when he was a kid and his dad and his two brothers were wrestling. And he watched them from the sidelines. He felt left out. Later, much later, he asked his dad about this, and his father said that from the look on my face, he said, you had a leave me alone expression, so I did. And Bruner says, and this is true, any circumstance or situation, it's my responsibility to create community and to get involved in that community. We can stand on the sidelines and we can say, oh look, I don't belong here. And take situations and circumstances to verify that for ourselves. Each one of you has made the decision to become a part of this community. And I'm wondering if you do that in the rest of your life. Do you take responsibility for creating community? Do you take responsibility for stepping outside of yourself and welcoming others into your heart? I think I've told this story, and it's not one that I'm particularly proud of. There's a woman in my family that's not my immediate family, but I have difficulty with her, and so she sort of ignores me and lives around me. And I was talking to my son and my daughter about that, and my son said, well, Mom, maybe you're wearing your do not disturb sign. And when I have up my do not disturb sign, it is often misread. What I really want to say is, I'm very shy, and I don't know what to say to you. That would be the honest sign. But instead, I've made this little make-do sign that says, "Do not disturb." So I wonder how many of us in our lives do put up our "do not disturb" sign, do protect ourselves from becoming involved in community and expecting others to step out and embrace us, when in fact, it's up to us to embrace others. It's up to us to have our heart open and to be willing and lovingly able to accept people in our lives. Ernest Holmes was an amazing man, and he knew no strangers. And I so admire that quality of people that are able to have conversations, meaningful, purposeful conversations with total strangers, and assume that total strangers are friends. So what would I put on my sign? I'd like to get to know you. What's your story? You're my friend, whether you know it or not, whether you recognize it or not. So, Frankel talks about, at one time, he recommended that there was a Statue of Liberty on the West Coast that would be built and called the Statue of Responsibility. And apparently there's that kind of statue plan in the works. He said, Frankel, "Freedom is not the last word. Freedom is only part of the story and half of the truth. Freedom is but the negative aspect of the whole phenomena whose positive aspect is responsibleness. In fact, freedom is in danger of degenerating into mere arbitratedness unless it is lived in terms of responsibleness." So really, that was a convoluted statement. And what it actually meant was that your attitude determines the outcome of your life. All right, and stepping into the responsibility of what your life looks like, to own it, and to make value judgments about how you are operating in the world, and deciding and determining how you can change your attitude, how you can live in the moment and have your signs be open and willing and interested and involved. So Ernest Holmes had this to say, and I want you to hear this in a very powerful way. This is what we teach in this community and in this philosophy. Ernest said, "Trained thought is far more powerful than untrained, and the one who gives conscious power to their thought should be very careful what they think than the one who does not." Let me read that again because I kind of stumbled over it. Trained thought is far more powerful than untrained, and the one who gives conscious power to their thought should be more careful what they think than the one who does not have trained thought. So when we teach affirmative prayer in this community, when we teach affirmative prayer in this philosophy, we are teaching trained thought. And it is far more powerful than someone who stumbles through life not knowing what they want, how they want their lives to look, what outcome they expect. Because affirmative prayer is trained thought, and it's very powerful. And when you learn to use it, and when you understand that your thoughts can be harmful, just like electricity or water can be harmful, knowing to hold your thought on the positive, to be open and available, to be loving, to use your thoughts creatively in a way that works for you. I'd like you to remember that God's mind is your mind. God's mind is your mind. There's a mantra that I'm very fond of, and I use it a lot. And it goes that there is one mind. That mind is God's mind. That mind is perfect. That mind is my mind now. There is one life. That life is God's life. That life is perfect. That life is my life now. You are God made manifest, and your thoughts are creative. When Rene was here, he talked about how our ancestors had projected their dreams, and their dreams were being manifest in our lives now. And I thought at that time, I wondered at that time, what am I dreaming forward for my progeny, for those that follow behind me? My thoughts are powerful. Your thoughts are powerful. And they're not just affecting us individually. They're affecting our progeny, the future. We, each one of us individually, with our thoughts, are creating the future for our children and our grandchildren and our grandchildren's grandchildren ad infinitum. We're creating forward. So what am I creating? How am I behaving in the world? Am I behaving in a loving, powerful, open-hearted way? Or am I wearing my do not disturb sign? Am I shutting myself off? Am I building barriers around myself? We all have that decision to make. We all have the decision of how to live open-heartedly, lovingly, staying in an attitude of love and gratitude. So, I would remind you that attitude is the orientation of an aircraft or a spacecraft relative to the direction of travel. Attitude determines your altitude, whether you'll pitch, roll, or yaw, whether you'll fly, and sing, and dance and laugh. It's all in your attitude. So once more, I thank you all for being here. I really appreciate your presence. And I want you to understand how important you are. How important you are. Not just to this community, but to the world. And your open, loving spirit that I recognize and acknowledge in each one of you is creating amazing opportunities, amazing circumstances and situations throughout the world. So I thank you. I love you all. Namaste. I would invite the practitioners. Stand and join with me as we hold this community in prayer. As we hold each other in prayer. As we acknowledge that there is one life. That life is God's life. That life is perfect. And that life is our life now. we acknowledge that our thoughts are creative, as we take responsibility for direct, powerful thinking, as we use the law for the benefit of ourselves and for the benefit of all humankind. I acknowledge that the entire world is my community. The entire world is an expression of the divine. And I'm open to it. I keep my heart open in love, in generosity, in kindness and caring, in decency. I allow myself to understand that everyone's behavior is a reflection of their divine desire for love. And even though I might judge it as misguided, I truly acknowledge that everyone is doing the best that they know how to do. I keep my heart open to peace and harmony, to love, to an expression of spirit that flows through me, from me. And I hold in my heart an awareness of all of those that belong in this community, that are a part of this community who are not here today. I call forth alignment and wellness for everyone. I call forth deep, abiding love for, as Steve calls it, our tribe, the greater community and the greater world. I rest in the knowledge that despite my judgments, despite my humanness, all is well, because all is God. And I stand strong in my faith and trust in that knowing. I say thank you, Mother, Father, God, for this miraculous, amazing community, this miraculous, amazing life, this miraculous, amazing world. And I know that as I've seen it, as I've felt it, as I've spoken my word around it and about it, that it must be done. It is the law. So I get out of the way and I allow the divine.